Good evening. Welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday, October 15th, and tonight council will be meeting in regular session. We're going to begin first with establishment of a quorum. It looks like we have one council member absent, so that does leave us with a quorum, so we can do business. So we will proceed. And the first point of business is acceptance of a set of minutes from the regular session held October 1st, 2012. Could I have a motion to accept that?
I motion that we accept the minutes from 2012, October 1st.
Did I hear a second? Okay. All those in favor of acceptance of these minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign as opposed. Okay. We have accepted the minutes. Communications. I have several, I have a couple requests for liquor permit transfers. I think council members have all been in receipt of these. There is a transfer from Mistretta's Market, doing business on North Schaefer Street. The transfer to Big Mama's Burritos, 10 South Court Street. And this is a full... See, tell me what that means. Oh, this is carry out only. Okay, I'm sorry. The 10 South Court will be carry out only if this is approved. Second, that we just got tonight from business known as Smiling Skull on Court Street to a new restaurant in that location, which will be called, we think, the North Moss Restaurants, at the same, at 63 North Court. I'm sorry, yes. And so this is a in-house sale of liquor. And so if anybody has questions or concerns about these, they could contact the clerk of council. And hearings will be for the transfer of Smiling Skulls to North Moss would be by the 13th of November. And the one from Mistretta's to Big Mama's Burritos is coming up. It's the 22nd of this month. So comments need to be made at that before those deadlines. We also have a public hearing coming up on next Monday. I'm sorry, not next Monday, November 12th. November 12th at 7 p.m. before our regular council session. And this hearing is to consider the Planning Commission's recommendation to change the current R2 zone located between Utah Place and Townsend Place to an R1 zone. We do have maps, and they are available in the council chambers if anybody needs those. So this is a public hearing on the change of zoning, and it will be held on Monday, November 12th, beginning at 7 o'clock in these chambers. Anybody else with communications? Mayor?
Let's see. I think also the maps, rezoning map may be on the website. I will look for that. That should be in the finance link or the planning commission.
Good point.
Let's see. Other things. Just to let you aware that this week, October 17th and 18th, of course, there's going to be some paving on Sunnyside. So we may have portions of East State Street closed because it's going from East State downwards from the water break, if you remember. The other one, of course, later that week, if we can get our act together in time, will be the 4th Street repaving as well. Now that the rock has been removed, we want to get that cleaned up a little bit. Also, let's see, there's going to be a ribbon cutting for CGI. An invite, I think, was sent to all of you. That's the 25th for the new business coming in. Again, that's going to be at East State Street, the tech park there. Say Stateside Technology Park, I think is I keep thinking of McBee, but it shows my heritage or how long I've been here. And of course, I guess you probably heard President Obama's coming. Just be aware that the streets around the East Green will probably be closed. Pedestrian traffic will be allowed, but I suspect the route to get around town, downtown, or uptown area will probably be similar to what you saw at the homecoming parade time, which would be through Schaefer and around the corner. So I suspect there'll be lots of streets closed, and it'll be an event. So just so you know, this Wednesday, there will be traffic issues.
Do you know if there's going to be any public transport for maybe some parking at other locations?
We did not put any together, if that's what you mean. At this late date, I don't know if we could. I assume, the way I'm hearing it, most people will be uptown anyway. So we'll see how it goes.
Auditor Hecht?
Thank you, President Sands. As Member Nisley mentioned 2 weeks ago, we did get our state audit back, and once again, it's very good, and they had someone deliver a certificate to me and all that kind of stuff. But we do really well as a city as far as what we do. There was only one issue in there. It was not a finding, but it has to do with the way we collect the coins and the parking meters. And they always closely look at any points of cash collection. And there's really nothing to show that anything's going on. Actually, it sort of looked like from the bookkeeping that we were depositing more money than we were taking in, but we need to do some corrections on that. So we have met with the police captain and the person in charge of collecting the coins and tried to develop some different procedures that they've already put in place. And then they need some policies in place for backup for when he's not available, because there's really only one person who does that, and things like that. So we're still working on that, but that was our only issue. We had a very clean audit again this year. You should have all gotten your copies by now. If anybody has any questions about anything, feel free to ask me now or later. The other thing I wanted to talk about is it's budget time. I put out a budget timeline, and I had put on there that I was going to do my revenue report tonight, but I am not prepared to do that tonight. And we are still looking at the budget and the revenue sources. Ray is looking at the budget, and especially the salary lines, which are the majority of our budget expenses, to see what our carryover might be, to see if they are short money or if there looks like there'll be any left over. As you all know, carryover is the really big issue that we have every year. We need that. Typically, the budget starting out is more than what we're predicting to bring in for the year, so we need that carryover to get us through. And so we're going to continue to look at that, and hopefully in 2 weeks I'll give a report. In the meantime,
2 weeks, you
2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever.
Yeah, that'll be the end, that'll be the fifth Monday, so we won't have...
Oh, yeah, so, okay, whenever the next regular meeting is here, I kind of forget where you are in your schedule, if you're still going to meet on campus or when that's going to be, but whatever works out.
We're here.
It's, okay. So the first regular meeting in November, I'll do that, and of course, in the meantime, you can do your own budget discussions, and if you need any information from my office, just let me know.
Whether, could I see hands up, questions, comments? Okay, thank you, Auditor Heck, for the good news about our audit. We're always pleased to hear that. Law Director Lang.
I just want to say thank you to Auditor Hecht. I think you may have been underselling that a little bit there, but when a state audit comes back and the biggest problem they've got is how we're getting change out of a parking meter, I think that really says something about the kind of tight ship that you're running here. So
Thank you, Pat. Actually, last year I didn't have anything in there, so, but when I took office, there were 16 items that needed to be dealt with, so we've come a long way.
So we're going to move ahead. Ordinances for third reading. Ordinance 9912. An ordinance approving the report of the Assessment Equalization Board with respect to objections concerning the estimated assessments for sidewalk improvements associated with the North Court Street area infrastructure improvements and the Grosvenor Slip project. Member Nisley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move adoption of ordinance 9912.
Second.
And as we've explained at earlier council and committee meetings, the improvements that we're working on tonight is part of the North Court Street infrastructure, and you may have seen some of the construction that's been going on North Court with it closing, and we were replacing water lines and sewers, and then also on Grosvenor Street, where there is a slip that's been in existence for, I think, at least 10 years, and that slip was repaired, and at the same time, it made sense trying to coordinate all of the repairs at the same time, so we're moving ahead with the sidewalks. And so this is part of basically a four-part process. It requires 3 ordinances, 2 of which you'll be looking at tonight. Those 4 steps of what we do are identify the sidewalks that are needing repair, and that sidewalk repair is the responsibility of the citizen, of the property owner. Then we appoint a board, because if citizens want to make an appeal for the assessment that's been made for their sidewalk repairs, they can do so. The board then makes a report, and then the 4th step is that we proceed with the repairs. So 3 of these items you're seeing, we've seen ordinances on. The earlier first ordinance was the appointment of the board. So this one now, this particular ordinance, is approving the report of that assessment equalization board, and they had, I think, 3 to 4 appeals that were processed, and they made decisions on them. So that's the
Just to
background.
mention, this assessment board is convened, excuse me, each time that we have a project such as this, and it's made up completely of citizens of the city.
Right.
And they've handled it very well this year.
They do very well. They go out often and inspect the sidewalks, then they look at maps, they meet with city staff, and so the 3 people, I think this time, who served were Laura Luther, David DeScutner, and Joe McLaughlin. So I'd like to thank all of those 3 individuals for the hours of time that they volunteered to help us along with this process.
Okay, we have a motion to accept this on 3rd reading in a second. All those in favor of ordinance 9912 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, the ordinance is accepted. And so we move on to ordinance 10312. An ordinance authorizing surveying and preliminary design of the Columbus Road, Lancaster Street Infrastructure Improvements Project, introduced by Councilmember Gosney, who isn't here. Was somebody to take this up?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I move adoption of ordinance 10312.
Second.
And this particular infrastructure improvements along Columbus Road will help us with the curbs and other infrastructure with the sewer and water improvements along the Columbus Road.
Any other comments? Okay. All those in favor of ordinance 10312 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. This ordinance is also accepted. We move on to the 3rd ordinance for 3rd reading, ordinance 10412, an ordinance authorizing the acquisition of property at 83 Columbus Road and declaring an emergency. Councilmember Fall.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we adopt 10412.
Second.
This particular ordinance has been under heated debate, I'd say, especially for council. This is a particular piece of property at 83 Columbus Road, which is an old gas station, and it's been up for a sheriff's sale. It was taken by the court. The court would like to get rid of it, and it's an opportunity for us to look at acquiring a piece of property that potentially has some problems that is in the flood, in our wellhead protection zone. And what I would like to do, because it's been discussed many, many times, I'd like to open it up for council discussion right now, because I know many people have issues about it. So, who would like to go first? Councilmember?
Either one.
I would like to know if we received the report, the early reports. the
No, there
earlier
are no
reports.
early reports to find. We went to, was it Department of Commerce and asked for the Buster information, Freedom of Information Act, and we got regurgitated everything we've sent them in the past 10 years. The earliest, if I understand, the earliest correspondence is actually with our chief Troxel at the time, saying these tanks should be taken out because the gas station's been abandoned.
So we have no new information?
No new information.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilmember Fall is correct. This has been a difficult issue for council members to look at. And I think you gave an accurate description, is that the piece of property has potential, but it also, I think, has also some problems. And so, I've put together a few comments, so I'd like just a minute or two to go ahead and make those comments. We have had past EPA-related experiences. In 2002, we had a U.S. EPA ruling, but I believe that was verbal only. But the financial cost to the city was, for the site cleanup, was approximately $666,000. And I believe we spent over $500,000 in legal fees. And then along with the paperwork, we ended up with a $1.35 million expense related to that earlier cleanup. If something is found, then at this site that we're considering for purchase, then the fees, we don't know what fees we might face for that. And we'd also be then responsible for quarterly monitoring of that. We've had other instances of gas station sites that have had to be monitored within the city. We've got the Clark Station, I believe, on East State Street that's had some monitoring, and then also there was a gas station earlier at Carpenter and Lancaster that's faced some monitoring. So if we would have a finding and be faced with cleanup fees, they would end up coming from the general fund. So that's a source of concern to me, particularly in light of other financial commitments. Just in the past few months, we've had $51,000 that we were not aware that we were going to need to be repairing a cupola. $25,000 for mowers that failed earlier in the year, another $55,000 potentially for a backup pump at the water treatment plant, although we ended up being able to repair that internally. But those alone would have been, well over $125,000. I realize there aren't any issues at that site yet, but there could be. And so my personal belief also is that we might be able to work with the U.S. EPA and the state EPA. So that's where I'm standing with this potential purchase or for right now.
Mr. Patterson?
I would also like to echo the concern. I also have the same concern about finances with this particular site if during the removal of the tanks there is a hit. There are no documents that show that there's an NFA, no further action needed on that particular site. I understand that the tank removal may have occurred during 86 or 87 during the transition period to when this was necessary. However, that certainly for me personally raises a red flag that the tanks were removed for a reason. Don't know what that reason is. There's no paper trail yet. When I'm weighing things out from a financial standpoint, it is troubling to think about what we could incur financially if there is a hit on that particular site. Again, like Member Nicely was saying, when you're looking at that financial uncertainty and the money coming out of the general fund, it's troubling.
Ken? Kent?
Thank you. This definitely has been a controversial discussion, and it's not necessarily tonight, but in past discussions, and I've ebbed and flowed in my head about where I stand on it. I'm generally leaning towards supporting the purchase of the property and having faith in the executive branch's ability to follow through with taking care of this property. It is controversial, and I do have fear of a Pandora's box, an epidemic that we may encounter as a city, and I really appreciate the officials within our city that have voiced concern and echoed what's already been stated tonight. So I appreciate others besides those that have commented tonight that have expressed concern about this particular acquisition. But I generally, I have faith in our mayor's office and the ability to follow through with taking care of this in an ethical way. Thank you.
I'm in favor of this purchase. I share the concerns of the other members, particularly about financial responsibility and what would be potential costs of cleanup and so on. But I think the main thing we have to concern ourselves with is this. This is our problem, if it is a problem. And if it needs to be cleaned up, we should clean it up. We hear lots of talk today about how we want more local control and city government should have more power and the state's taking powers away from us and so on. I think this is a good example where the city could say, well, this is ours. It's our mess. If we buy it, we clean it up if there is a problem. But I think the fact that it is in our wellhead protection area, we're obligated to go out and find potential problems and correct them. And to say, well, maybe we can wait 10 years to 20 years and pass the problem on to somebody else. I mean, 20 years, I'll be dead. It won't be my problem. But I'm alive now, and I want to take care of it. That's what they're paying me for. You know, that's why I'm sitting in this seat. It's a hard decision. There's no right answer at the moment. But I had to make a decision somewhere, and I'm coming down in favor of buying it. So that's all I have to say.
Chris?
Just a point of clarification, that I'm in no way doubting the executive branch's ability
Correct.
to handle this. We have the utmost confidence in the executive branch. And I, too, I think, have gone back and forth and said which is the best decision. What it comes down to me is that not knowing the expense that we might incur, we can't even say that we have the resources available to be able to take care of it. I would love to take care of it, too, but I don't know that I have the resources, and that's part of careful budgeting, or that the city has them.
Again, we brought this forward because it's been up for sale twice. We've done a Tier 1, as you've seen the results, 11 well borings around the location without any hits whatsoever. Granted, it's an unknown. You could dig it up and find some surprises. We're talking about 3 tanks, 1 diesel, 2 gas. From my point of view, I think we should deal with it. It is in our wellhead protection. I think we should be proactive on this. I am leery about the cost, but the fact is, if we could just ignore it and let it sit there. The fact that we don't see any hits means we might not see any at all. It can sit there for 10 years, just being the attractive high-low gas station it is now. Same time, again, we've spent a lot of time and energy already working on our wellhead protection. We should, we've gotten the low-hanging fruits very easily. We should remain proactive and make sure we have, just something like this not sitting there by itself. But again, it's your call. I'm not going to get upset either way.
May I ask the mayor a question? In a hypothetical, if we were to acquire it and encountered problems, what resources or access would you have to assist, or what would you foresee?
Well, it depends what you find. Essentially, if you look, we talked about the gas station on East State Street near Tulane and May, I think, and they've been monitoring that for a long time. Again, and there's always that concern. Other places, like I think towards the Stimson area, there was contamination there, and it basically capped that so there would be no seepage, if I understand correctly. And again, I'm all knowing about this from sitting in the audience and not on council at the time. In terms of funds, I know the Economic Development Council and the Port Authority have both been trying to get some EPA brownfield money. That would go towards the planning of the remediation, but not actually the cost of the remediation itself. We keep our eyes open for that type of funding. There's not a lot of funding out there for that, except if you can try tying it to some kind of economic development, which could be in this case, but it's a long shot in terms of getting extra money. I don't have any clear, easy answers right now. I mean, if I knew where the money was, I'd be chasing it already. But again, I know the discussion with, I know they've tried twice so far to get some funds for EPA remediation planning, and they've not succeeded. But the list grows longer every time the county applies, and it's coming through the county-wide such situations out there. And the thrust of that is to put property back into the into the mix, so to speak, if it's got a brownfield problem. So in terms of where the funds would come from, it'd be a difficult call. We know we're going to cost at least $30,000 to $40,000. I seem to recall that was the number we're talking about to get the tanks out. After that, the testing would have to be done. I think you've got the same information I have at this point. But, my biggest concern is in the wellhead protection and PERC range. We could ignore it, or we can go and say, let's be proactive. And again, all the stuff we've done so far has been pretty, I wouldn't say easy, but the fact is that it's a continuing operation in that sense. But, again, it is a hard decision, one way or the other.
As a reminder, Mayor, how much have we spent thus far just to...
I don't have to, that's...
$15,000 for that original testing, then it'll be about $30,000 or $32,000 to take out the tanks, and then I think the plan was to tear the building down, which would be another probably $10,000.
Anybody else? Kathy? Yep.
Well, I've been pretty vocal all along. And it is a pretty tough decision, and as Member Nisley, who's our Finance Committee Chair, stated, the money issue is important, and we have to consider that in everything we do for the city. But I agree, it's really tough. On the other hand, that wellhead protection ordinance was mine. I live on that side of town, and it's really a tough call, but we just aren't that far away from paying off that long-term $1+ million, and what we had to go through with that was really difficult. But I will say this about that whole situation, and what would happen now if there were issues, is we would know about it right away, because we are monitoring it. And by the way, it probably costs $6,000 to $10,000 a year to monitor these gas stations year after year. That monitoring is not cheap or free. But we are doing it at other places around town. If we found something now, we'd report it right away. So hopefully those fines and all that other stuff that were incurred years ago, because the situation probably wasn't handled quite right, hopefully wouldn't happen this time around. But the cleanup is still an issue. We just don't really have the money there. And so, I don't know. Like the mayor said, it's a tough call, and I understand, his desire to be proactive, but it is being monitored. The bottom line is, even if we don't take it, if there's an issue there, we're going to jump in. And the state, I'm sure, at that point would be happy to turn it back over to us, at any time. So I don't feel there's a need to jump in there in a hurry, but it's just tough, and it's up to council. As the mayor said, we're not going to be upset with anybody either way it goes.
I get the feeling that technology for remediation has changed. When the Speedway on East State was pulling air tanks out, it got to be, I know they set up auxiliary, I think Chemron was one of the companies involved in it, where they were talking about a way to vacuum off any volatile organic compounds. I think they went further on because I think they had some canopy problems, structural canopy problems, rather than gas tank problems. But I know that, it'd be a different matter than having to haul all the soil out. I think right now they can treat the soil on site, remove the organics, and put it back in. So I suspect that the costs probably haven't gone down that much, but the technology's gotten better. And it may still get better, so, that's always another possibility too.
I've weighed in on this before, so I don't know that I've got a lot more to add. I've made you aware of the relevant sections of the ORC on this, and I guess I would just say, if I would add anything at all, it's just in a general sense, whether we're talking about Athens or anywhere else, when a city gets into hot water because of a situation, it's almost never because, the city set out to say, hey, let's go, get into some kind of trouble. It's always done with the very best of intentions. There is a very real legal risk in doing this. And I think that you all understand that risk, and it's the job of council to assess that and weigh that against the potential benefit. That's your call to make. But, I feel like I've at least done my job here in pointing out that you are, as I said before, the fleas come with the dog here. So, proceed at
Such the color.
as you wish, but be aware of the risks as you do it.
I think my take on it is a very difficult decision because we have been very protective of our wellhead, and we have passed other controversial items protecting our wellhead to a really high degree. But and then there's the issue of being able to trust the state to some degree. If it turns over to the state, whether they would even, at this point, have the ability or the money to look at being able to remediate anything, or whether they would even look at whether it needs to be remediated. I don't have a lot of trust with the state at this point. I don't think they really care with everything that else is going on with all the resource protection that they're not doing with everything else. I don't trust the state at this point to be able to take it on and have Athens city wellhead as a primary concern. There is an issue with the EPA. However, I think that if we go into it with in due diligence, we have done due diligence. We have spent money looking at the soil, looking at the different tanks. And so I think that we have gone into this with eyes open. And I think that for me, the number one issue all along when all the other ordinances that we've passed this year is you can't function as a city if you have tainted water. There's potential tainting of the water. And we've talked about that. We've passed ordinances with things that are purely hypothetical that potentially could come into the city. This is more than hypothetical. It's sitting on the ground. So that's, I think, balancing out. And because we have done due diligence and looked at and done soil sampling and things like that, I'm more likely to trust the city to be able to deal with it than passing it on to the state.
Chris, it may get a
I think
chance.
they deal with it. So that's my take on it. So
Any other comments? Are we ready to vote? Because that we are going to have, I think, some division here, I'm going to ask that we vote with a show of hands, so I can count the votes. I'm sorry. That's the whole reason for that. So all those in favor of approval of accepting ordinance 01042 signify by raising your hand. 3, 4. Those opposed to the ordinance, to accepting the ordinance, raise your hands, please. The ordinance is tied. This is one time when the president gets to vote. And actually, I'm going to put my vote for approval of the ordinance. I think it's important that we take the responsibility here. We do also see some possibilities for potential, we're looking at extending the bike path in that area, so I think it's the right thing for the city to do. So I'm raising my hand for approval of ordinance 103-2.
Jim, you don't get a chance to do that often, do you?
He was complaining about it
It's almost historic.
Okay, we're going to move on to ordinances for second reading. Usually ordinances for second reading, that's just exactly what happens. They're read. But I think some of these might have some additional action taken. Ordinance 106-12, an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to execute a mutual aid agreement between the City of Athens and Ohio University for law enforcement assistance and declaring an emergency. Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to confirm that with the mayor, this is...
This needs to be suspended,
Indeed,
yes.
a suspension, okay. And I believe so because of deadlines and...
The
agreement.
present agreement we have ends at the end of October.
Okay, thank you.
If you let it go another reading, you have it into November.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So it is my request at this moment, Mr. President, that we move to suspend this particular ordinance for the reasons so stated by the mayor.
Second.
All those in favor of suspending the rules on ordinance 106 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay. The rules are suspended. Member Butler.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move to adopt ordinance 106-12.
Second?
This particular ordinance is primarily for the benefit of the community as a whole, and it's mutual assistance between the city and the university when it comes to the police departments. There's a number of points regarding the particulars, but of main purpose of the agreement is to identify areas of mutual assistance to provide arrest authority for university police officers when off university property, and to establish general guidelines and general policies governing instances of mutual assistance. Thank you.
Mayor Wild, do you want to mention?
No, this is a re-up. This is for 4 years. If you remember from, I think it's from your October 1st agenda, the appendices, the actual agreement is part of the ordinance. And it gives us mutual coordination, arrest powers, the right for them to arrest and list them as reserve officers and swear them in as such. Actually, I see something in here that says, let's see, assistance of the university during major emergency events. And some people would say President Obama coming might be such. But I know that we'll be both working together to make the place safe and do crowd control, everything else needs to be done. And that's how it is. It's how we work together. I know you had your JPAC meeting forum last week and took a tour, so you can see how well both organizations are meshing, and this is just a continuation of it.
And if I might add,
Thank you,
the
Mayor
lead
Captain.
vehicle in the homecoming parade was a JPAC joint police vehicle, which is...
I didn't get to
Sure.
see it. I guess I was in the wrong part of the parade.
Oh.
I still have yet to get there.
You blinked.
Yeah.
The rules having been suspended, all those in favor of accepting ordinance 106-12 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The ordinance has been accepted. Ordinance 107-12, an ordinance authorizing the purchase of chlorine, fluoride, salt, caustic soda, and sulfur dioxide. Member Butler?
I believe this is okay.
No?
Thank you. Thank you.
Ordinance 108-12, an ordinance establishing a domestic partner benefits policy for city employees. Ordinance 110-12, an ordinance determining to proceed with sidewalk improvements associated with the Grosvenor Slip Project and the North Court Street Area Infrastructure Improvements Project as described in resolutions R0312 and R0412, respectively. Ordinance 111-12, an ordinance authorizing the auditor to reduce 2012 year-end appropriations. Moving on to ordinance for first reading. Ordinance 112-12, ordinance granting the renewal of a revocable license to Keith McGrath and Covec, 221 and a half Columbus Road, to allow the placement of a sign on the city right-of-way, introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a straightforward renewal of a revocable license. We go through multiple of these every year. And it's for a sign that's already placed. It's for a new 10-year revocable license. So it's a renewal for 10 years.
Comments on that? We'll move on to ordinance 11312, an ordinance amending the 2012 appropriation ordinance, introduced by Councilmember Nisley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we consider this under suspension of the rules.
Second.
And the reason being that we need to be able to make the appropriations in the particular ordinance, particularly the Sunnyside street repairs, immediately.
Okay, all those in favor of suspending the rules on ordinance 11312 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Okay, the rules have been suspended. Member Nisley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move adoption of 11312.
Second?
And this particular ordinance has three parts to it, and what we're doing is changing the amounts we appropriate within our city resources. The first one is $10,041 to the Street Fund 220 for Sunnyside street repairs. And our original estimate for the road repairs is $10,000 higher. The original estimate was $24,000. We now have $33,041 of repairs that need to be done, and we have an additional $1,000 worth of stone that needs to be added in before the pavement's put on. So that brings it to a total of $10,041 that we're needing to, additional that we're needing to appropriate for that. The second item is the TIF fund, and TIF stands for Tax Incremental Financing. It's a method of taxing that enabled us to make the East State Streets improvements, and as that money comes in each year, approximately $400,000, 45% of that then is returned to the local school district. This year, the amount of revenue that came into this tax incremental fund was slightly higher than we anticipated, so we have $15,700 that we will be appropriating to the TIF fund to pay the school share of those amounts. And the last item has to do with the Oxbow project, and that's the bridge that's going to be totally renovated and look beautiful probably a year from now. But what happened is that realizing the tight time schedule for trying to repair it this year, they realized it made a lot more sense for the city to be able to do that next year. So we have it's a $3.1 million project. $500,000 of it we're going to be reserving for expenses this year, some of the first expenses for the renovations. And then what we're doing is reserving the $2,266,000 for next year. So in other words, we have to reduce the appropriation out of this year's budget.
Mayor, did you want to?
Essentially correct. Again, we're just moving the $2.6 million from this year's budget to next year's budget. So we're taking out play for 2012 to 2013.
And what are we doing with that?
The money is not going to come in this year, so we need to take it out of our budget. For the auditors, they'll say, well, we need to, amend our certified resources for the year. And because that money is not going to come in, and the auditors don't like us to keep those resources high if the money doesn't come in, so that we don't overspend what actually is available. So we need to, and actually, my office would have liked that one suspended tonight also, so that we can send our paperwork to the county and get our approval back and all that kind of thing.
It is under suspension right now. It's part of
I know, that's why I said, she asked for it for the Sunnyside repairs, but I would have asked for it for this also.
Oh, it's for the whole ordinance.
One other thing I wanted to add is that on the Sunnyside repairs, just to point out to council, because I don't think this went out to everyone, But this $10,000 added on to the $24,000 that they already appropriated, or you already appropriated a few weeks ago, would put that total project over the $25,000 threshold for a bidding process. However, when this came up, and I had heard rumors about this and asked the deputy auditor to look into it, and the state did change that amount this year, so for future reference for council, that threshold is now $50,000 as of the end of July, I believe.
I just, real quick, want to go back to the Expo Bridge. I know we had appropriated the 2 million plus, and that was for the steel, is that correct? So
The
essentially,
500,000, I think, is for the steel.
oh,
I think that, we're buying some of the stuff and getting it at for this year, but the actual construction will be, which will be the majority of the dollars amounts. Yeah, I may be wrong on that, but I was under the impression that's...
No, I think that's my understanding also,
Yeah.
is they want to order those beams, have to be made.
that was my question,
Yeah.
is what has been purchased so far? And
Mostly that, and of course the design, you've always, appropriated money for that, design and construction, design, engineering. And again, really, it's just to reflect the reality of what's going on here.
Okay, so the rules have been suspended on ordinance 11312, and it's now up for adoption. All those in favor of adoption signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Okay, the ordinance has been accepted. Ordinance 11412, an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to submit an application and enter into a Water Pollution Control Loan Fund, WPCLF agreement, designating a dedicated repayment source for the loan and declaring an emergency. Member Nysel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Some of the discussion we had for this last week, and I'll just briefly summarize it. In part, we have had earlier sewer rate increases, that legislation put in place by council when Finance Chair Nancy Bain was serving on council, so we have her to thank for this. And this is part of a wastewater treatment plant upgrade, which is separate, as Councilmember Fall noted last week. This is separate from the county extension, the sewer extension project, so a different discussion. But these are very much upgrades that are needed to our plant that have been identified by the Environmental Protection Agency. And what it would do is upgrade our clarifiers and install ultraviolet equipment and phase out the chlorine that's being used. So there'll be two ordinances that we'll be looking at tonight. Councilmember Butler will be introducing the second one, but this first one authorizes the Service Safety Director to enter into the Water Pollution Control Loan Fund Agreement, and it will be a 20-year loan, and I believe the interest rate on that is slightly above 2%. So.
Comments about this? Ordinance 11512, an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise and accept bids for construction and construction engineering of the wastewater treatment plant facilities improvement project number 266 and declaring an emergency. Member Butler.
Thank you, Mr. President. To piggyback on Member Nisley's efforts to communicate eloquently this particular project that has been discussed for a number of years now, beginning with former member Nancy Bain. Quite simply, the subtle difference between the two ordinances, this then allows the city service safety director to, she authorized her to advertise and accept bids on the particular project. Thank you.
Questions or comments?
I will note that it has an emergency clause on it, and you can see it, Section 2 there talks about it, project advertising begin on November 15th. So I suspect, I don't know that our second meeting in November, that should be the 5th. We may have to suspend on the second reading, I suspect, but I'm not sure. We have time.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Done with the ordinances. Now we are ready for announcements and other business. Yes.
council needs to approve the September financial reports, so therefore we'll need a motion for that, I suppose.
Do you have a motion?
I move that we accept the financial reports.
Second.
Okay. These are the financial reports from
My office.
September.
September, yeah.
September. All those in favor of accepting the financial reports from the auditor's office for the month of September signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. I hear you. Okay, thank you. Okay, other announcements. Do we have committees that want to meet next week as committee meeting night?
Planning and development, please.
Okay.
It's getting like financial.
Finance,
I dare you not to have one.
anybody else?
Happen.
Other committees can get on the schedule within the week, but we'd like to have this so the clerk can design an agenda by the afternoon of the meeting. So anyway, we do have a gentleman who wanted to speak to us. I just now located him. I'd lost you. Okay.
I'm over here in the corner. Hi, thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Council, for letting me speak. My name is Wes Grunden, and I'm a community assistant, and I work with Off-Campus Living at the university. And my reason for speaking today is I'm wanting to kind of promote a couple programs that we have coming up this month. There's some kind of ambitious programs that we're hoping to get the word out about. The first one is on Sunday, September 21st.
September, October?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's September. Yeah, sorry. No, I'm sorry, October. October, yeah.
Okay.
Sunday, October 21st, sorry. It is being coordinated by fellow CA Matt Doherty. And this is kind of a donation program that we're doing. We're raking leaves for those residents in the Athens community that might need it. We are asking for small donations, $4 or $5. And so that's not going back to us. We're giving those donations back to an environmental association that's on campus. And he wanted me to speak with you guys about that tonight. His number is 440-409-3567 if you'd like to talk to him about that and get some more details. The second one is one that I am working on. I'm partnering with fellow CA Thomas Raby. I believe you guys know him. He coordinated Beautification Day last year. And this is going to be a Halloween trash cleanup. It's going to be on Sunday, the 28th, right after Halloween uptown. It's going to be going on at noon. I've already spoken with Tyler Craig and members of I want to call it the Clean Committee, but it's not that anymore. It's Keep Athens Beautiful Everywhere. I believe that's what it's called now. I'm still trying to learn the name on that. But I've spoken with him, and we've also secured Goodfellas as a sponsor of this, and so they will be giving food. We'll be giving pizza to those volunteers that do show up, so that's kind of an added incentive to show up to this. And we're trying to be ambitious with this trash cleanup, and we're going to try and get the East End neighborhoods and also the West End, and then try and get the downtown as well. I'm aware that we do, the city provides cleaning for Court Street after Halloween, but we're trying to get some of the alleyways as well. Those can get pretty bad after Halloween, as we all know. So both of those programs are coming up, the one on the 21st and the one on the 28th. And our goal with these is just to build a sense of community. My office works with students living off campus. We try and get them integrated into the Athens community. We also like to address Athens issues with our programming, and so that's something we're trying to do with these. So my reason for bringing this in front of council is, one, to get the word out about these, and then two, securing volunteers. I mean, if you guys would like to show up, we'd love to have you, more the merrier. I know Michelle's been to a few of our trash cleanups. And then if you have any residents or anybody else who would like to be involved, feel free to contact me as well. My number is 740-412-1032.
And you are?
Wes Grunden.
Could you repeat your number? I'm sorry.
Can you,
Wes?
740-412-1032.
can you forward this to so that it can be put on the website? So that
yeah.
So all the phone numbers are there, and that the interaction and coordination can go on, because I think that this is really important. However, the cleanup after Halloween Just because you guys are doing it does not mean that people should not clean up after themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you're not acting as the super mom of Athens. So people need to clean up after themselves too.
Yeah, we recognize that, and with especially the trash cleanup, we're hoping, as we did a lot of these last year, we're hoping to get a diverse group that shows up. It's really good to see students there, permanent residents, city officials, and university officials kind of working together as a common goal.
Right.
We did secure that last year, and it was very successful. I think we planned 6 of the trash cleanups last year, and we're branching out this year with the raking of the leaves. There's some various other projects that are kind of in the works right now, so.
Great. Thank you.
Just to reiterate what Chris says, is get the information to us so we can put it on the
Definitely.
website, if not on our community calendar. So the more the merrier.
Yep, we'll marry it. All right, thank you.
I have a quick question. Did you say where you're meeting with after Halloween
Yeah,
for the
that's
cleanup?
the important
Oh,
part.
yes, I'm sorry.
Where?
I don't have the details for the rake one yet, but Matt Doherty, he'll give you further details on that. Right now, for the trash cleanup, we're tentatively going to meet on College Green, just because since we're going to try and go to the east side and the west side, it's kind of a centrally located place for the trash cleanup. That we're still that's still kind of in the works exactly for sure, but as of right now, it's going to be right in the center there, and then we'll kind of disperse after that, so.
And you'll provide trash bags and all that stuff?
Between Tyler Craig's office and then our office, and then Thomas Raby has some connections still from Beautification Day. We will provide the gloves, the trash bags. We also have, we're getting some brooms and dustpans because we are trying to get glass as well, and we do not want our people that are going out there volunteering picking that up with their hands. And that was something we learned quickly last year, that was something that needed to be addressed, but we didn't want anyone to get hurt in the process. So every few groups will have some brooms and dustpans as well to take care of that.
Oh, yes.
Just a question about the leaf raking. Is that throughout the city that you're leaf raking? is
Yeah,
going
it's
on?
just basically for that. It's just whoever needs it, whoever gets in contact with Matt on that, and it's going to be kind of like, from what I gather, what he told me is going to be kind of like an all-day long thing. I mean, I don't know when he's starting, but whoever needs it and at what times, they're going to kind of get a team together and do that. So,
And
I
that-
mean,
And that'll
it
only be
doesn't
on-
matter necessarily, I guess, not where. He's just trying to see whoever needs it, he's willing to go there.
And it'll only be on the 21st of October.
Yes, and not September, yeah, October.
There's the leaf cleanup throughout the city, which the map is on the
Should be,
website.
it's on the website.
It
There's
is.
actually a schedule for picking up leaves throughout the city. You might want to time the leaf raking. You're supposed to bring it out to the curb in that particular week, so the
Yeah.
idea is to coordinate some of those areas that are going to be picked up about the same time. There's only a couple of sections of the city for the 21st, I suspect, but you may want to think about just saying, okay, we're going to stagger the leaf raking activities to mirror when the sweeping truck goes by, or at least let them know so they can pick it up special. We can always contact the street department and have that done too.
Okay.
In other words, if you say, I've got a place that we just rake the leaves up, maybe we can get a truck there for that. No
Okay.
guarantees, but I can relay that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, that was my thoughts on
Yeah,
that.
yeah, the idea is maybe we'll
Coordinating.
coordinate what the city picks up with what you rake to the
If it
curb.
takes off for next year, it'd be great to coordinate more fully with the different days, because there is several different pickups.
And then there's that gentleman who's trying to pick up leaves already for the composting too, so he's there too.
But the bottom line is, Russ, we thank you for coordinating and helping to do
Oh,
that,
yeah.
okay?
And this is something we're going to be doing, our program, we have some very good programming efforts in our office, and it's something we'll be doing all year long. I know the trash cleanups is one, and that's kind of an all-year-long effort that we do. And especially in the spring, when the fest seasons kick in, we'll be doing that as well. We have a trash task force, as we like to call it. We called it last year, but, so this is kind of ongoing efforts that we'll be doing. So I'll keep you guys informed and email you some of that stuff, so.
Wes, there should be a sign-up sheet right there. Would you make sure that you get your full name on there? And
Oh, okay.
and a contact number if it's not already there. And I just want to say that the city as a whole really appreciates the community assistance program.
We do.
And it has helped us tremendously in many ways. And we're looking forward to working with you and all the people who sign up for community assistance.
And thank you again for the CA program. Can you give a shout out where you're covered? What's your neighborhood?
Oh, yeah, I'm on the east side. My streets are, I have Morris, Stimson, Elliott, and Palmer Street. And that's kind of my neighborhoods that or my streets that I'm in charge of.
Your hood.
I can say that it's always something new with that neighborhood that I have. It's always exciting when I go out. And
Here we go.
yeah, I get to see Chris a lot too, so.
In the big orange house.
Okay, thanks.
Thank
I
you.
add just one thing to that leaf breaking thing. My mother used to take advantage of that. It's a really nice thing if you know any senior citizens that need someone to rake their lawn, and it's donations, so it'd be whatever they could afford, and, you know, in case they don't know any kids to come help them out or anything.
Good point. Okay, anybody else that wants to speak to council tonight? We have dealt with all the ordinances. I think we're done. Adjourned at 8:30.